feel free to jump in, stop me. If you disagree with something I said, I made a mistake. I'm human. This will be my second time giving this presentation, so the chances of me making a mistake are non-zero. So kind of a quick intro. What is Linux? Linux is pretty much every computer that isn't a Mac or a Windows computer. Now, this might seem like not many at first until you realize that you have all the websites, infotainment systems, a lot of smartphones, except for iPhones, IoT. Most of that has some sort of Linux core that is running beneath it. Okay, so down. So Linux was kind of created because all of the source code is available. It allows us to not have to deal with a lot of this updates, dumb updates, and whatnot. A quick kind of history lesson. GNU/Linux, technically different things. GNU being like the user interface is my understanding.
GNU is the packages and all the source code, and Linux is just the kernel that comes on top of it.
Mm-hmm. The person I'm presenting to is knows more than me.
Want me to take over?
I don't mean to just try and keep myself humble here. I'll skip over that. Linux history, Bell Labs, so on and so forth. Of course, we have Linus Torvalds, first one who put together the Linux kernel, still open source. GNU on Linux. Bunch of different desktop environments. Yeah, where did it go? Yeah, the text-based kernel, bunch of fun stuff. All the different desktop environments. If you want a Windows lookalike, a Mac lookalike, probably do alt text if you wanted to. Are my keys going to work? Yes, they do. Finally. Or you can just do terminals with tmux and whatnot screen. So if you want to get into Linux, start to learn it, the best way to do it is often just to have a version running. There are many different distros. Debian, Ubuntu is probably the one everyone's most familiar with. Probably the best way to start. You also have the Fedora, Red Hat, CentOS. I remember seeing some random YouTube video that had the title of Red Hat's killing CentOS or something like that. Don't know if that's true. Don't bother watching the video. And no one wants to jump in to confirm or deny. Yeah.
Yeah, Wikipedia says it was a Linux distribution, so it looks like it's been killed.
Was a Linux distribution.
Yeah.
Okay. Converted into a Windows distribution or something?
Right.
So if you want different ways to run Linux, if you want to actually get a shot at it, you can have sort of a bash type terminal on Windows. I have a Mac. I've never done this. I have no idea how that works. You can dual boot machines. This is iffy. It's rough around Macs. I tried to triple boot my Mac once. That was a terrible decision. This is actually a pretty good way if you want decent performance, but you have to restart every time you want to switch between them. I use virtual machines. It's pretty nice. You're going to be able to have snapshots, sort of go back in time if you really screw something up, which is always useful. It also lets you try out a bunch of different things without having to reinstall an operating system on your computer a bunch of times. Or if you really want to just sort of do a sink or swim approach, you can just install it on your computer. So you can also, if you're an Iowa State student, as I'm expecting most of you are, if not everyone, you have the ability to remote in to the Iowa State Linux servers. If you're an engineering student, you get to have these Linux remote 1 through 5 engineering.iastate.edu. There's also just the Linux.ece 1 through 7 iastate.edu. And I believe ComS had something with Pyrite or something. Someone could correct me on that. That might have been phased out. To get into this, you're going to want to use a SSH method for if you're on Windows. You're going to have to download PuTTY. I believe you use that in CPRE 288 if you take that class. Basically, this is just a way to get a terminal on a remote device. If you're on a Mac system or Linux system, just SSH in the terminal is supported. The command is this one right here.
I believe Windows also does have an SSH client. You might just have to install it from like the optional features menu. But I use PuTTY anyway, so
yeah,
you can save configs and stuff.
You can go through Sigwin, but it's kind of a little ugly. You've got to install some like SSH packages, that sort of stuff.
I actually mainly use WSL instead of a virtual machine. I mean, it kind of limits what you can do, but yeah, it's good for basic things like that.
I think anytime I've had to access any of the Red Hat boxes on campus virtually, I ended up using the VMware Horizon client. That also works for most of the boxes anyway.
Yeah, I've used the VMware Horizon for getting access to the Windows machines, but I haven't tried it very much with any of the Linux machines. Let's see. If you're not sure which one you want to try out to install, DistroNet is a nice place to start, kind of get a feel for each of the different types of systems. I have the feeling, Ben, that you probably know the basic commands.
Yeah.
Copy, move, remove,
touch,
make directory, cat.
Yep.
You got the final disagreement over Vim or Emacs. I feel like that may have disappeared when Moody and Jack left the club. I haven't heard of anyone that has particular opinions of that so far. File permissions. Feel free to stop me. I have the feeling almost, Ben, that you are possibly as knowledgeable, if not more knowledgeable than me. Different types of file permissions.
I don't know about that last slide. Go back.
Oh.
Octal, you said?
So, ChangeMod has the sort of the...
I think it was the one before that. The file permissions and ownership. Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go.
So, file permissions have a 3 times, so 9 bits. If I did that right. Yeah, 9 bits associated with who can access them. The first 3 are the user, or like the owner of the file. The next 3 are the group that the file is owned by. And the last 3 are all or world. And then in each 3 you have a read, write, execute. I'm not sure why these are switched. I believe that is a typo. Basically, they correspond to what they sound like. If you have the read bit enabled, you're able to read the file. The write bit enabled, you're able to write the file. The X bit, you're able to execute the file. Mm-hmm. This allows you to use the ChangeMod command, which changes the permissions on files in sort of an octal format, where you can have 7 being read, write, and execute privileges. 5 is the 4 and 1, so that'd be the read, not write, and execute. So this would, I imagine, be a lot of the binaries that you'll have. or possibly even just the one, so execute. So if you have a, like the password executable, you want a average user to be able to execute that, but you don't want them to be able to change that. So you'd have the permission set to 5 in that case, because they can then read, not write, and execute. Questions?
Nope. Go ahead.
What I will say is there are fun exploits and security problems with file permissions, being able to beat them. But that's just kind of one of the base ones. System commands, may or may not be familiar with these, allowing you to kill processes, kind of see which processes are running, and sort of a holdover from the old days of mainframe computing, being able to send messages to and from users who are also logged in. So by people sharing an or all SSH into a box can send messages to each other with stuff like wall and write.
Cool.
Never used those, but they're there. And then here's the fun stuff with having documentation. Man gives you the manuals, or at least how I ever always think about it. Apropos is kind of nice because if you're able to put in a term, it'll find stuff kind of related to it. For example, if you want to change your password but don't know the password command, you can apropos password or change password or something like that. And there's a decent chance that the password command will come up in that case. What is which, where is, that sort of stuff. And then most is kind of self-explanatory there. And if you don't know what a command does, command-h or --help will more often than not provide you with some small amount of documentation. Some other useful programs, HTOP being able to let you see what program is taking all of your resources. LS, those can tell you like what things you have available. tar lets you extract and compress stuff. Although I always have to Google for flags. Curl and wget can get you stuff off the internet. Let's see. Yep. Anyone have anything they want to add or comments, questions? Well, thanks for everyone for sticking around. And Ben, thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
Feel free to shoot me questions if you have any or subjects you want to cover. I think I've been able to figure out presentations for most of our meetings. But if anyone has things they actually want to hear about rather than whatever I happen to be working on in my spare time or someone else happens to be working on in their spare time, feel free to post it or shoot me a DM in Slack.